My name is Tanya Sipos, and I'm 27. Now. 4 years ago, back when I was 23, I learned a lesson that still tightens my throat when I say it out loud. Sometimes the people who clap the loudest at your engagement party are only measuring the distance to your throat. At 23, I thought I'd already survived the hardest part of my life. I was wrong. To understand how 1 week before my wedding turned into the ugliest betrayal of my life, you have to understand my family first. Because the truth is, the betrayal didn't start with my fiancé. It started with my sister, technically my stepsister. And the man I call my dad, he isn't my biological father. My real dad left when I was a baby. No dramatic goodbye, no apology, just absence. I later learned he signed papers saying he didn't want to be part of my life. My mom and he were never married, and after he disappeared, it was like we'd been erased with a pen stroke. So when my mom married my stepdad when I was about 8, I didn't gain a father. I finally got one. He showed up to school events. He built my science fair projects with me at the kitchen table. He sat on the edge of my bed when I had nightmares and told me monsters weren't real, then stayed until my breathing slowed. So yes, he's my dad, the only one I ever needed. And Olivia came with him. Olivia and I went to the same school. That's how our parents met. Her mom had died when Olivia was little, an epileptic episode, sudden, brutal, the kind of loss that freezes grief into anger. But Olivia didn't just carry grief. She carried a blade, and she used it on me. From the moment we became a family, she hated me like my existence was an insult. At school, she had this pack of friends who moved like a swarm, laughing too loudly, whispering behind their hands, turning hallways into stages where I was the punchline. At home, it didn't stop. It got worse. Olivia would accidentally spill drinks on my homework. She'd borrow things and return them ripped. She'd walk past me in the kitchen and mutter things just loud enough for me to hear. Charity case. Mistake. Crybaby. If I complained, she smirked like she'd won. When I finally told my parents, they tried. God, they tried. My mom sat Olivia down and spoke gently, like kindness might peel cruelty off her skin. My dad got stricter, groundings, revoked privileges, consequences that should have scared any normal kid into stopping. Olivia didn't flinch. When my mom tried to discipline her, Olivia snapped, "You're not my real mom. You don't get to tell me anything." And sometimes when she said it, I saw my mother's face tighten, not with anger, but with hurt. My dad tried too. He'd say, "In this house, we respect each other." Olivia would stare at him calmly and reply, "You can't make me care." They threatened to send her away if she didn't stop. Olivia laughed. Actually laughed. "You won't. You feel guilty because my mom's dead." Even as a kid, she understood leverage. By high school, she spiraled, smoking, drinking, sneaking out, running with people who looked like trouble from across the street. Then one night, she got caught. Olivia and her friends were arrested for breaking into someone's house after drinking. I remember my mom's hands shaking when she got the call. I remember my dad standing in the living room afterward, staring at nothing like he was watching his own failure on replay. That was the last straw. They sent Olivia away, not to punish her, but to save her. A rehab-style program for troubled teens. The kind of place you choose when you're out of options and terrified of what happens next. Olivia screamed, cried, accused everyone of betrayal. Then she went. She stayed with her aunt near the center and finished school there. My parents drove every weekend to see her. They asked if I wanted to come. I didn't. I wasn't proud of it, but I was exhausted. She'd made my life a daily humiliation ritual, and I couldn't pretend I missed her. While she was gone, her friends stopped bothering me. Suddenly, I wasn't a target anymore. For the first time in years, I could breathe. When Olivia came back after graduation, she looked different, quieter, calmer. Like someone had sanded down her sharpest edges. The first thing she did was apologize. A real apology, not a shrug, not an excuse. "I was horrible to you," she said. "I know I was. I'm sorry." I didn't trust it. History has a smell, and Olivia's apology still carried traces of old cruelty. Still, I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, because I deserved peace. By the time we left for college, our relationship wasn't warm, but it was civil. She mostly ignored me. And honestly, being ignored by Olivia felt like winning the lottery. Then in college, I met Jake. We became close fast, the kind of close where routines form without discussion. Late-night drives, study sessions, grocery trips where you argue about cereal like it matters. When we were 23, we got engaged. Jake was 28 then, older, steadier, the kind of man who talked about the future like it was already mapped out. When he proposed, I cried so hard I couldn't even answer at first. He laughed, wiped my face, and said, "That's a yes, right?" I brought him home for Thanksgiving after we'd been together a year. To my surprise, it went well. My mom liked him instantly. My dad shook his hand, studied him, then nodded. Even Olivia joined the conversation. She laughed at Jake's story, asked questions. I remember watching them and feeling something loosen in my chest. Maybe this was it. Maybe my life was finally turning normal. After that dinner, Olivia started reaching out more. Texts, small talk, checking in. But I couldn't shake a tiny fear. What if she's doing this because of Jake? So one day I asked her straight out, "Are you trying to be friendly because you like my boyfriend?" She laughed. "No, God, no." Then she told me something that, at the time, felt reassuring. She said hearing Jake talk about his siblings and how much family meant to him made her realize how badly she'd damaged what we could have had. She admitted she'd blamed me for being sent away. "But it wasn't your fault," she said quietly. "It was mine." I searched her face for a lie. I didn't see one. So I let myself believe her. Olivia even helped plan the wedding. Not like a loving sister, more like someone trying to earn back a seat at the table. She asked about flowers, venues, guest lists. Sometimes I caught her watching Jake across the room. I told myself I was paranoid, because Jake was mine. He held my hand under the table, kissed my forehead in passing, looked at me like I was the center of his world. And Olivia? She was finally acting like a sister. So when the week before the wedding arrived, I was stressed, but happy. The good kind of stress, the kind you're supposed to have. Then one afternoon, Jake stopped answering my calls. Then Olivia did too. And something old stirred inside me. That childhood feeling, when the air shifts right before something hits you. I came home and found it. A note, not a letter, not an explanation that matched the damage it would cause. Just a note. Jake wrote that he'd been secretly seeing Olivia, that they'd realized they were meant for each other, that it would be wrong to marry me when his heart belonged to someone else. He even wrote that he was doing it so no one would live a lie. Like the lie hadn't already been living in my house. Eating at my table, smiling in my face. They were gone. Together. And I stood there in my kitchen, holding that note, my body numb, because some part of me already knew the truth. Olivia hadn't changed. She'd just learned a new way to hurt me. The first sound I remember after reading the note wasn't my own voice. It was my phone hitting the floor. I don't remember dropping it. I don't remember deciding to sit down. One moment I was standing in the kitchen, staring at Jake's handwriting like it might rearrange itself into something kinder. And the next, I was on the tile with my back against the cabinet, breathing like I'd just run miles without moving an inch. I called him, straight to voicemail. I called Olivia, straight to voicemail. I called again, and again, and again. Nothing. When my parents came home and saw me sitting there with that piece of paper crushed in my fist, they knew. They didn't need explanations. My mom's face went white. My dad read the note once, then again. Slower the second time, like he was making sure rage hadn't blurred the words. My dad wanted blood. I don't mean that metaphorically. He talked about hiring a private investigator, about finding them, about dragging them back so they'd have to look me in the eye and explain themselves. I had never seen him that angry, not even when Olivia got arrested years earlier. But I didn't have the energy. I felt hollow, exposed, like the entire town was about to laugh at me, even if no one had said a word yet. So I begged him to stop. "Please," I said, I can't do this. I can't chase them. I need it to be over." That was the first time I chose survival over justice. Jake's parents reached out a few days later. They were mortified, apologetic. They paid for everything: venue, catering, dress, deposits, so I wouldn't lose a dime. It was generous, and somehow humiliating at the same time, like compensation for a car accident that left you limping anyway. After that, contact with Jake's side of the family faded. There was nothing left to say. My family, though? They were furious. My mom cried in the shower because she didn't want me to hear. My dad stopped sleeping. He'd sit at the kitchen table late at night, staring at the same spot, like if he focused hard enough, he could undo the last 20 years. And me? I went numb. I slept too much. Or not at all. I replayed every conversation in my head, every smile, every moment Olivia stood next to me while helping plan my wedding. I started therapy because I was afraid of what I was becoming. That's when the postcards started. The first one arrived about a month later. California. Sunny, blue skies, a beach I'd never been to. On the front was a photo of the ocean. On the back, Olivia's handwriting. "I know this must be hard. I'm sorry for how everything happened. I hope one day you can understand. Attached to it, tucked in like an afterthought, was a photo of her and Jake. Smiling. Happy. I stared at that picture for a long time before my hands started shaking. It felt deliberate, calculated, like she wanted to make sure I saw what I'd lost. Then another postcard came, and another. Different cities, different smiles, same message underneath. We're happy, we're in love, we chose each other. Something shifted in me then, because suddenly it all made sense. Olivia hadn't forgiven me for being sent away. She'd waited. She'd smiled, apologized, played the role of the reformed sister until she had access to the one thing she knew would destroy me. My fiancé. My parents cut her off after the first postcard. No calls, no messages, no attempts to fix things. And that decision cost Olivia more than she realized. Because my dad had always planned for Olivia to inherit his business. She was a business major. She talked about it constantly growing up. That was her future, until she burned every bridge on the way out of town. When my dad offered the business to me instead, it wasn't revenge. It was guilt. I was a history major. I didn't know the first thing about running a company, but he told me he'd teach me everything, that it was his way of making things right. So I agreed. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I learned from the ground up. I made mistakes. I fixed them. I proved, to myself more than anyone, that I deserved to be there. The postcard stopped after about a year. By then, therapy had helped me breathe again. Work kept me busy. Slowly, Jake and Olivia stopped living rent-free in my head. Years passed. My dad retired. I took over the business. Life stabilized in a way I never thought it would. I thought the nightmare was over. I was wrong. Because one Saturday afternoon, 4 years after they disappeared, someone rang my doorbell like the house was on fire. I opened the door, expecting a delivery. Instead, I found Olivia standing there. She looked nothing like the woman in the postcards. Her clothes were faded, her jeans were too short. Her face looked thinner, drawn tight by stress instead of confidence. She didn't smile. She just said my name like it hurt. And in that moment, I knew exactly why she was there. For a second, I just stood there, staring at Olivia like she was a ghost I'd accidentally summoned. 4 years. 4 years since she and Jake vanished, a week before my wedding. 4 years since the postcards stopped. 4 years since I'd trained myself not to flinch when I heard her name. And now she was on my doorstep. "Tanya," she said again, her voice thinner than I remembered. "Can I come in?" I didn't answer right away. I scanned her the way you do when you already know the ending of the story. Faded jacket, scuffed shoes, eyes darting like she was bracing for a slap that hadn't landed yet. I already knew the answer was no. "What do you want?" I asked. She swallowed. "I need help." Of course she did. She stepped forward like she was going to cross the threshold anyway, and I moved without thinking, blocking the door. Something in my posture must have warned her, because she stopped. "I wouldn't be here if I had another option," she said quickly. "I wouldn't." That was the first time she sounded honest. She told me everything in a rush, like if she paused I might slam the door. Jake had lost his job a couple months earlier. Instead of looking for another one, he'd started drinking. A lot. She'd quit working years ago when they moved to California, took care of the house, supported his career. Now her resume had a gap big enough to swallow her chances whole. "I've applied everywhere," she said. "No one calls me back." I crossed my arms. "And this is my problem because—" Her eyes flicked up to mine. "Because you own the company now." There it was. She told me she'd heard from relatives that our dad had retired, that I was running everything, that maybe, just maybe, I'd be willing to help. Not her. Him. "I'm not asking for money," she said quickly. "Just a job. For Jake. Something small. He needs structure." I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. Sharp, humorless, almost hysterical. "You want me to hire the man who left me at the altar with my stepsister?" I asked. "In my company?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I know what we did was wrong," she said. "I'm sorry. I really am. But that was years ago. We're struggling now." Struggling. The word bounced around my head like it deserved sympathy. "You sent me postcards," I said, "with photos. Remember those?" She looked away. "I didn't mean them like that." "Then how did you mean them?" She didn't answer. I already had. "You need to leave," I said. Her eyes filled, but I didn't care. I'd cried enough for both of us. "You always had a kind heart," she said softly. "I knew you wouldn't turn me away." That entitlement, that assumption, snapped something in me. "I don't hire cheaters," I said. "Apply somewhere else." I closed the door before she could say another word. I stood there, heart pounding, listening in case she refused to leave. I was ready to call the cops. She left, but peace didn't come with her. That night, I called my parents and told them everything. They weren't surprised. Apparently, Olivia had been back in town for a week, staying with some high school friend. Word travels fast in a small town. A few days later, Olivia went to them. She told them I was heartless, that I was punishing her when she was already at rock bottom. She expected sympathy. She didn't get it. My dad told her the business was mine now, that he wouldn't interfere. My mom reminded her, coldly, that she'd lost the right to ask me for anything the moment she ran off with my fiancé and then tried to torment me with postcards. That's when Olivia snapped. She accused them of always favoring me, called me the golden child, said I'd stolen the life that should have been hers. When my dad told me what she said, it got under my skin. Because technically, she wasn't wrong about one thing. The business had been meant for her, and even though I knew she'd lost it because of her own actions, guilt crept in anyway. I had everything now, and she had nothing. I didn't want to help her. I still don't. But for the first time, I wondered if refusing made me cruel, or if saying yes would have destroyed the last piece of myself I'd managed to save. Before I could decide, Olivia decided for me. She showed up at my workplace. I was in a meeting when it happened. Quarterly projections, staffing plans, the kind of conversation that makes you forget the rest of the world exists until it crashes through your door. I heard shouting before I heard my name. At first, I thought it was a customer. Then the voice sharpened, turned familiar, and my stomach dropped. Olivia. She'd walked straight into the building like she owned it. In a way, she always had. She knew the layout from childhood, knew which doors stuck, which hallways security ignored because they led to offices that family used to occupy. By the time I stepped out of my office, she was already in the hallway, red-faced and shaking, pointing at my door like it had personally betrayed her. "She stole it!" Olivia screamed. "She stole everything from me!" Employees froze. Phones came out. My heart slammed against my ribs, but I kept my voice even. "Olivia, stop," I said. "You need to leave." She laughed, a sharp, unhinged sound. "You don't get to tell me what to do. This was supposed to be mine." She turned to the crowd like a performer who finally had her stage. "This business was promised to me," she shouted. But she played the good little girl, lied about being bullied, turned our parents against me, got me sent away so she could slide right into my place. Every accusation landed like a thrown knife. I called security. She didn't slow down. "She was jealous," Olivia went on. "Jealous that Jake chose me. She couldn't stand being overlooked for once, so she destroyed me." That was when something inside me snapped. I stepped forward. "You left with my fiancé," I said loudly. "You sent me postcards to rub it in, and now you're surprised no one wants to reward you for it." Security arrived then, trying to escort her out. She fought them, screamed louder. They dragged her outside. I called my dad before I called the police. I didn't know why. I think I needed permission to stop protecting her. He didn't hesitate. "Call them," he said. "Enough is enough." When the cops arrived, Olivia was still lurking near the building, pacing like a trapped animal. They charged her with trespassing and disturbing the peace. Minor charges, but charges all the same. When I told my dad she'd been arrested, I expected grief. Instead, I heard exhaustion. "I'm tired, Tanya," he said. "I'm just tired." That hurt more than anger would have. A few days later, Olivia vanished again. Someone saw her heading toward the airport, probably back to California. I won't pretend I wish her well out of pure kindness. I hope she finds a job. I hope Jake gets his life together. Not for them. For me. Because if they don't, I know she'll come back, and I don't want to live my life bracing for the next explosion. I've learned something over the years. Compassion doesn't mean self-destruction. You can pity someone without saving them. And you can forgive without reopening the door they burned behind them. For the first time since I was 8